I spent my monastic training and then took on responsibilities in Thailand for 24 years, 24 years, and that's where Ajahn Chah's monasteries are kind of the back of beyond of Thailand. It's where if you were a civil servant and you got sent there, it meant you'd done something wrong. You'd messed up somehow and you got sent off to the boonies. And then I've spent the last 26 years, I guess, in Northern California, and that's the back of beyond also. We're about 2.5-3 hours north of San Francisco, and it's a very quiet and not easy to get to place. And I have very little contact with different traditions, different lineages, different religions, but certainly the invitation that I received from Swamiji was so sincere and heartfelt that I felt a kind of confidence to be able to come and join. So really, but this is all very new to me. And it's very familiar. It's quite, it's just that's the sense of seeking and the sense of appreciation of truth is palpable. So that's it's very inspiring to see a place that is in the Rishikesh, the land of the rishis, the practitioners. So having come and seeing the respect that my own teacher Ajahn Chah is held in is very it's very moving, really. I mean, of course, I'm completely biased, so I think he's a great teacher. But to see other people recognize that is very, very touching. And for Ajahn Chah, the saying, "Truth is one, the paths are many," it would not be a strange monastery slogan for him. It's he was incredibly open to other expressions of spiritual seeking and training, and he was curious which is very interesting because where he grew up is, as I said, it's in a very rural area that is not very, it's not in the center of anything, and he, say, his education was very limited, but I think that's you start realizing that the, say, education and to a certain degree some of the background doesn't really condition us for really deep truth. What the heart has to be open to that, or has to incline, so that Ajahn Chah certainly had that inclination and seeking. But he also, especially as a teacher, he would take an interest in other forms of practice, and not that he was. It's just that he was attuned to truth. I think that's maybe, because to say that he was educated or he read books about it was hardly the case. He was just attuned to truth. So there were Catholic priests and Catholic nuns who used to come to study with Ajahn Chah. Because Thailand has a long tradition of the Catholic Church being its presence, going strong presence beginning from the time of Louis XIV, so that there's missionaries and priests and nuns and missions there that are set up for education, and they tend to know the language, and so then those who have been around for a while and are attuned to a truth. Somebody like Ajahn Chah was very attractive, and it was very inspiring to them. And of course, it drew these people from all around the world, like me, and many others, to him to study and on a certain level, what's the pull? Because his background is a peasant farmer. He dropped out of school in grade 2. Didn't. Well, in those days, because it was so rural and so poor, the only formal education he got was up to grade 1, and grade 2, then the school closed down. Teachers disappeared or something. It was the early days of establishing an education system. So he's not, formally he's not educated, and he's this, was kind of a tiny little man, about maybe 5'1", but he had a big presence. And I know, I'm going to say, like the monk who's with me, Ajahn Jivakul, a big guy, and there's one of the, and then Ajahn Samedo, who's he's about 6'3", There's another monk. And they said they always felt, another monk was he was like a helicopter, Vietnam vet, helicopter pilot. He was about 6'3", 6'4", and big guy. And we said they always, in Ajahn Chah's presence, they always felt somehow that they were much smaller than him. And there's just that, and it's not as if Ajahn Chah was kind of forcing a presence on people. It's just that he was just had a natural charisma, a natural charm, and a presence that one felt you took notice of. And so when he, his own life, again, he grew up in a village, but he had an inclination from a very young age, and he grew up in as most rural families. It's a big family, and farming family. So you've got duties, you've got chores, and he there's one day when he was 9 years old. He was doing some kind of chore with his sisters, and they and his heart wasn't really in it. He was kind of, why do we have to do this? And so like, well, here we are, and thinking about his chores and on the farm, having to look after tobacco plants. I don't even smoke. Why do I have to do this? And he was supposed to be helping his sisters. And anyway, he got. They were doing pounding something or other, and he got hit with the pounder. And it was an exclamation of, "That's it, I'm going to the monastery." And he, 9 years old, packed up and went to the local monastery. He was done with life in the world, and really drawn. And he stayed. His parents were okay with that. It's common in especially in the rural Northeast culture for the young kids, especially the young boys, to go to the monasteries and stay. And so he did. And then he became a novice. He did get pulled out just through teenage, I think he was about 16, 17, and left for a few years. Just the realities of having a teenage body, but then he came back when he was 20 to take his ordination again, pulled back to the monastery. So there's a very strong pull from the time he was very young, and it was, and he was in those days, and to a certain degree even nowadays, to have monasteries that are focused on meditation and practice and training are quite rare. The vast majority are ceremony, ritual, just a presence of the tradition. So that, but he was drawn to something deeper, and he always felt he was missing something, but he didn't really see the examples. until it was when his father was passing away, and the reality of death, that always has when you reflect on it deeply, that it can push you into that spiritual search, and that's certainly what happened with Ajahn Chah, and he started seeking out meditation masters and trying to get a handle on how to train the mind, how to look after the mind, and he spent many years dedicated to that practice and training and solitude and going to study with different teachers and being on his own, and had many transformative realizations until people started to be naturally drawn to him. But he also said that one of the things that he said, he had all these experiences and had, very profound experiences. He said, but he didn't really become wise or really realize, say, deep wisdom until he started to teach. And he said, then is having to look after other people, having to pass on a teaching, having to pass on that, and that's where, both in terms of his ability to pass that on, but also in terms of letting go, because the reality of because you can conceive of these wonderful, inspiring truths that exist in this world, in this reality, but then to really live it, and then to do it with other people around us, that takes a lot of investigation. It takes a lot of training, a lot of patience, and most of us just aren't patient enough to be enlightened or to be peaceful, really. So that clear understanding of the nature of our experience and the what we need to let go of is something that is done both in solitude, but also in contact with the world. So that having an ashram like this, we have to learn from each other as well as learn from ourselves, and that takes it's something that, in terms of the Buddha's teaching, there's two very strong kind of threads that support each other in one's spiritual quest. One is the good spiritual companionship, and so that sort of that communal nature of us being human beings and being in contact with each other, being in relationship with each other. and the wise reflection, wise investigation. Those two qualities, and that's more of an internal quality, that development of mindfulness and reflection and investigation and wisdom. Those rely on each other, and so something so in terms of the teaching of Ajahn Chah, one of the characteristics of Ajahn Chah's training is the emphasis that he put on community and living together, training together, practicing together, and developing the different balances, so that, because there is a need for solitude, there is a need for quiet, there is a need for inner contemplation, but there's also the need to, how do you balance that with our being human, so that the cultivation of community is something that is a flavor that Ajahn Chah I think is quite unique to the way that he approached it, and I think one of the reasons why it's resonated for so many people. Again, sort of just this person from the northeast of Thailand touching so many people around the world over this, and there is there's something special there. So this sense of balance is really important. And in the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha himself characterized his teaching as Dhamma Vinaya, or say Dharma Vinaya. And usually the Dharma is either pointing to truth or to the teachings themselves. And Vinaya is like the training and the rules of discipline, or the ways that the particular for the monastic form, how the monastic form is regulated, but then it also applies to the way that within the lay people's lifestyle, how do you live? What precepts do you live by? How do you govern your life? So that, and when Ajahn Sumedho was a young monk, he was really frustrated sometimes by the sense that there's sometimes these senseless rules that we have to live by, and then also by the that wish to just let go of it all, and Ajahn Chah sort of empathized with him, and sort of said, well, it's all about balance, and he said, it's all about. He said, and the Dhamma is all about letting go or relinquishing, releasing, and the Vinaya is all about holding on. And when the two of those are functioning in balance, that's when realization takes place. That's when freedom takes place. So this, and he actually one of Ajahn Chah, of course, Ajahn Chah did teach a lot. He taught a lot. He could talk for long periods of time, and but really his main teaching was himself. Just this year, I was talking with my mother, I'm old already, but my mom's even older, of course. She just turned 100, and she's cleaning up everything, making sure that there's not going to be a mess for other people to clean up after her when she dies. But she's still in good health, and she's still a sharp mind. But she said, she told me, said to me, I've got all of the letters that you wrote to the family, starting from 1973, when I left traveling, and then went to Thailand, and do you want them? And I said, well, I probably don't want them, but I know other people who do. And so anyway, she sent them all down. It's a box of stuff, and there was all sorts of things in it. I still haven't read them, but there was one letter that I'd sent 3 boxes of photographic slides of life in the monastery at Wat Nana Chat from, I think that was 1976. And very clear, but also I wrote a letter explaining all of the who were in the photos, what it's about, because it was about life at the monastery. I've had no memory of sending this, and who took the pictures, I couldn't remember where they came from. But anyway, one of the things when I'm describing life at the monastery, I'm also telling, one of the things I'm doing, telling my family that, because originally I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't want to tell my family that, okay, I'm going to go off and live in the forests of Thailand for the rest of my life, or be a monk, Buddhist monk for forever. That's it's a bit much. And it wasn't really clear anyway, but I was very early on, I was very pulled and very drawn because of Ajahn Chah. But at that point, I was really committed to at least spending my first 5 years of training with Ajahn Chah. So I'm telling my family that I'm not going to, don't expect me back in Canada for another several years, but I said, but also this letter I did read, and saying that, just describing Ajahn Chah as a presence of just clarity and calm and steadfastness in the midst of all sorts of people and circumstances, and always a source of encouragement and inspiration. And so that, and you're saying, if I could just gain a little bit of that clarity and that calmness, it would be worth however many years I could spend there. So there was that example of Ajahn Chah is, and his teaching. I mean, much of his teaching was pretty basic Buddhism, but it's how he lived it, how you felt when he said something that was pretty ordinary. Like he would say, you would come with some problem or some big difficulty or some big doubt in practice and Buddhism, Buddhist teachings, and so just so often I heard it. I mean, him to myself, but to others as well. Is that suffering? It's because the fundamental teaching that the Buddha, from his very first discourse, was the discourse on the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. There is unsatisfactoriness, discontent, dis-ease. There's a cause. There is an ending, and there is a path to reach that ending of dukkha. But first, you actually have to acknowledge that there is this fundamental unsatisfactoriness. There is this sense of dukkha. And Ajahn Chah, and so often what he's doing is turning it around, because the way the mind works is that it's either looking at the world outside as a distraction or as a source of irritation, and we forget to bring our attention back to the heart, and it's that simple redirecting of attention that allows us to experience truth, and to do that with awareness, with mindfulness, with clarity, is the essence of any spiritual path, and so that's. And even say so Ajahn Chah was a master at turning it around and making us look at ourselves, and that was the great gift that he gave to us. Even though when you looked, you said, "Oh my God, I don't want to know this." But it's but you intuit the truth of that, and that's what keeps you practicing. But he took he had this incredible skill at turning things around and reformulating a question so that you really asked yourself more deeply, or the sense of the essence of what he taught. Again, simple truths. I mean, he used the Buddha's truth on because when the Buddha spoke of like universal truths, there's the truth of in Pali, it's anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca is just impermanence, change, inconstancy, and Ajahn Chah had a way of turning things in a way that made it. Of course, he used that theme of impermanence, But then also, he used his language kind of skills to say, along with the kind of impermanence, he would say, this is not sure, not a sure thing, it's uncertain. Because even when we think of impermanence, the kind of the habit of the mind, or what we would incline to naturally, is then to objectify. And it goes, we're creating an object that is impermanent out there. But what Ajahn Chah was also doing was, how do you turn that around and see how you feel about it? Because when something is changing, is impermanent, it's also it's unsure, it's uncertain. That's how you feel about it. So it's a subjective aspect, and it's important to be able to look at that simple truth of anicca, and have that encompass both the reality of change, but then also how we tend to react to it, and how we protect or distract ourselves from that because of that feeling of uncertainty, that it's not a sure thing. There was one time, Ajahn Chah had he'd built an ordination hall. And in the Thai tradition, an ordination hall is it's usually your most beautiful building. And it's kind of like the crown jewel of the monastery. It's one of the last things that get built. And it's tend to be done very beautifully. And at Ajahn Chah's monastery, it is a beautiful structure. It's quite special. It's quite different. Not at all traditional. And because it's all open-sided, and has this, kind of almost a modern architecture in the middle of the forest, with hints of the tradition, but yet no doorways in, and it's raised up on a big mound in the middle of the monastery. And people sort of ask, what kind of a place is this? What kind of... And he said, well, this is ordination hall. Why did you build it like this? I built it like this to protect it against thieves. Any thief comes up and they took around. There's nothing. There's no doors. There's no windows. And no cup. They just walk in and they leave. So it's in the ways of turning things around. But this new-ish structure, and of course, as things happen, there was some cracks forming in the cement work, and the Ajahn Chah was showing these people around, and one of the people said, "Oh, isn't that too bad, Ajahn Chah? There's already cracks in the building." And Ajahn Chah immediately said, "No cracks, no Buddhism." And it's just so important. So you have that Buddhism. The whole reason why Buddhism exists is because the world is impermanent. Because anything that comes into being will pass away. And because anything that comes into being will be unsatisfactory. It's just by its very nature. And one can't create an ownership out of it. One can't make it, this is me, this is mine, this is what this is what belongs to me. So it's a, but this, yes, no, if there weren't cracks there, Buddhism wouldn't exist. And Buddhism is here to deal with the imperfections of the world. There was another time when he went. This is one of his trips he went twice to the West, and in his second trip he went to a Tibetan center, and of course he'd never seen Tibetan Buddhists, he'd never seen the Tibetan places, but he was very interested, and he gave a teaching there that I remember being in. I was in Sarnath in 1990. I was on pilgrimage, and this Tibetan monk came up to me, and he said, "Are you a disciple of Ajahn Chah?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, well, it was 1979. Ajahn Chah came to our center in north of England and gave a teaching." He says, "I always remember that teaching. We were so inspired." But one of the things he did, they asked him if he would give a teaching on, would he teach them vipassana? Vipassana is usually insight. Literally, it means insight, and insight into truth. And he said, "Oh, of course, I'll give you a teaching on vipassana, on insight." He said, "Tomorrow, everybody come to the gathering. When you come, you can bring." He probably noticed that there was lots of flowers or flower beds there. He said, "Everybody can bring a flower." And then, so when everybody came, he said, "Okay, this will be your instruction in insight practice. You take this flower and you carry it around with you and watch it change." It starts off very beautiful, and and it starts to wilt. It starts to the colors start to fade. It's just quite natural. It's just the way things are. So that it's taking, and again, this is in terms of Ajahn Chah's teachings, just taking the ordinary and making it real, making it as an illustration of truth, so that this. Taking the Dhamma Vinaya, the truth and the training, how it works together, and so learning how to do that. So I think I've probably given enough. I don't want to ramble on too long, but I'll close it at that, and then we can continue this, I think, dialogue.